what will you say after having had the benefit of this documentary? From where I sit, it looks like an organization with a good heart that's been doing a lot of good work. We have celebrated them over the years, but it's a human institution, and they have a little difficulty in admitting that something went wrong.
Yes, something. I think that something went wrong somewhere. Looking at the documentary and some of the additions that the lady made in respect to their mode of operations. And when I was watching the documentary, there are three things that came to mind. The first is that whether or not they followed the due process in the work that they did, and whether also they observe that professional standard. Because once you are registered in that sector, then it's expected that your conduct would also be in such a way that will protect the right of children and even the adult. And also whether the best interest of the child was also observed in the process. So for me, if you're able to answer these three questions in terms of how they conduct themselves, then probably we may attribute some of these things to administrative error, and then also making sure that it do not happen again. But listening to the lady and then also Fred, I see issues of process that sometimes we take for granted because for you to do a rescue, the Children's Act is clear on what you need to do and the processes that you have to engage to do that. And even to the extent that the legislative instrument to the Children's Act gives you a clear direction as to what needs to be done. So once you follow that process, again, you are conducting yourself in a manner that's supposed to. But I think that for notice, that is where most of NGOs, our work must end. We need to notify the system to take up certain responsibilities. And if you look at the work of IJM, there is a high involvement of the state institutions like the police, social welfare, and they must take the lead in some of these things so that when it comes to prosecution and all that, it's not a matter of IGM leading the process, but it's a state institution leading the process because they've been notified.
It obviously will be the police, not the organization, but they will depend on the information that is given to them. And the courts will also rely on the information that is supplied it.
And that is where my issue is, because what IGM did is to just give the system a notice that this is what is happening at this particular time. Irrespective of the report that they will submit to these institutions, it's not absolute report for them to depend on to do any further work, but rather it is a notice and they have to go in to do further investigation to establish whether indeed the notice served them is right and or it is wrong, so that they can make some recommendation. That is where the social inquiry report is very critical in deciding what you need to do. And whatever recommendation that will be made by a social welfare officer in respect to the social inquiry report, it must be followed strictly. But in most cases, most of the social inquiry report comes after a lot of things has happened to the family. There's a raid, there's all kinds of things. The police has also, you know how the police does their work and all that. So sometimes there's some kind of breach of that process. And for me, we should also look at the work of the police, the work of social welfare in determining the outcome. Because if the documentary is on IGM and they have also engaged all these processes to get certain things done, then we also have to question how the processes were done by these administrative bodies to get these people into jail and all that, and whether or not the interests of children were served. And I was a bit alarmed that the social welfare officer wrote a social inquiry report, made a recommendation, and we are still not getting answers to whether or not they respected the position of the social welfare inquiry report to be able to do their work. And we will need answers to that. And for the other thing has to do with the professional conduct. As organization, what are the processes that you have to engage, to be able to do those rescue, whether or not there's a standard or a policy direction procedures.
So from where you sit, what should be happening from here?
Yeah, where I sit,